Folktales of Hawaii, He Mau Ka'au Hawaii, collected and translated by Mary Kawena Pukui, with Laura C.S. Green. The Magic Pipes. Kaua Kahiali'i was a ruling chief of Pihana Kalani, a sacred valley on Kauai. His parents died when he was an infant, and he was adopted by Kahalelehua, a kapua, who could be, at will, a woman or a huge ohia tree, covered with scarlet blossoms. She guarded her adopted son so well that if any human being was curious to see him, she would fill her valley with the thickest of mists and gather him up into her flower-laden boughs. No human being ever attended him. She and her retinue of kupua guarded him day and night. As he grew to manhood, she taught him to play on two magic pipes, kanikava, a loud-sounding one, and kanikavi, a shrill one. When he attained manhood, he heard among his attendants whispering of the beauty of Ka'ili Lau o Kekoa, chiefess of Makaiva, near Koloa Kauai. So, when he had a chance, he climbed up the mountainside during the darkest of night and piped this song. Kanikapu I Pihana Kalani, e ka'ili lau o Kekoa e, ua moe oi, ha'ali'ali'a maiana, ko aloha ia'u. E ka'ili lau o Kekoa e, ua moe oi, moe ana oi, a ho'ololo ana, I ke kani o ka ohe o kani kavi. E ka'ili lau o Kekoa e, ua moe paha oi. Eia me ia'u ko aloha, a hiki I ka mole o lehua. E ka'ili lau o Kekoa e, ua moe oi. I sound the pipe here, on the ridge of the mountain. O ka'ili, o crescent leaf of the koa tree, you sleep. Little by little, I draw your love toward me. O ka'ili, o crescent leaf of the koa tree, you sleep. Sleeping, you stir and listen to the song of the pipe called shrill voice. O ka'ili, o crescent leaf of the koa tree, do you feign sleep? Your love is mine, firm as the bedrock of Hawaii. O ka'ili, o crescent leaf of the koa tree, you sleep. The young man was lonely and piped to please himself, with no idea that his words could be carried over the cliff to Makaiva. But such was the magic of the pipes that they could convey the words themselves as well as the sound of the music. For 5 nights, Ka'ili Lau o Kekoa heard the sound of the piping. On the 5th night, she awoke her attendant, and together they searched for its source. All night long, they clambered over the cliff. At dawn, the music ceased, and the girls found themselves at the entrance of the sacred valley. Its supernatural guardians, seeing the beauty of the chiefess, allowed her to enter. But for 3 days and 3 nights, Kahalelehua held her adopted son captive in the boughs of her tree form. Ka'ili Lau o Kekoa sought everywhere, but could find no lover. On the 3rd day, the kupua resumed her human shape and released her captive. He and the girl stood and gazed at each other. But soon they made friends, and Kahalelehua, seeing how well matched they were, sent word to the girl's father that she desired to keep her for a daughter-in-law. For 3 months, everyone prepared for the marriage. New cloth was beaten and perfumed, mats woven, and foodstuffs brought for the feast. On the day of the marriage, lightning flashed, peals of thunder were heard, and the land was covered with mist. All these signs proclaiming the royal blood of the young couple. A few months after the marriage, Ka'ili Lau o Kekoa said to her husband, I shall soon fall into a deep sleep. Do not bury me, and do not mourn for me. It had been a custom of the girl from her childhood to sleep for months at a time. The day arrived, and she fell asleep. She ceased to breathe. For 12 months, her husband guarded her, but at the end of that time, he lost his courage, fearing she would never awaken. He therefore tucked the pipe, Kanikava, into her bosom, called upon her supernatural guardians to take care of her body, and taking Kanikavi, he traveled from island to island to drown his grief. After 2 years of travel, he came to the home of Waka, a relative of his foster mother, who was the supernatural guardian of Laʻiʻikawai. Day by day, he watched this beautiful chiefess, who reminded him so vividly of his wife. After a time, Waka asked him to become the husband of her ward, and he consented to long engagement. Now one day, a stranger accompanied by a young companion came to the home of Laʻiʻikawai. At every assembly, for amusement, this stranger would tell the story of Kaua Kahiali'i and Kaʻililao Kekoa. Kaua Kahiali'i asked her name and birthplace, but she merely shook her head. He said, "You remind me of my wife. Are you my wife?" She smiled and repeated the story. He began to dog her steps. Where she went, he followed. One morning early, he entered her house while she was fast asleep. He touched her chest and there felt a hard object. He drew it out and found that he held in his hand his own pipe, Kanikava. Drawing Kanikavi from the belt of his loincloth, he piped his song. "I sound the pipe here on the ridge of the mountain. O Kaili, O Kaili, O crescent leaf of the koa tree, you sleep." The stranger awoke and wept. A few days later, he went to Laʻiʻikawai and asked her to release him from their engagement, telling her the joyful news that he had found his wife. He and Kaʻililao Kekoa returned to Kauai. Afterward, he sent his friend, Ke Kalukalu o Keva, to Hawaii to seek Laʻiʻikawai as wife. The adventures of the journey are to be found in the romance of Laʻiʻikawai.